Okay, so welcome to Derry episode 7 features one of the most terrifying scenes I've watched on TV in a long, long while. Readers of Stephen King's novel will recognize this as a crucial chapter beyond the Losers Club narrative, shared with us as Mike's father rests on his deathbed. We discover it's a secret he's hidden from his son for years upon years. Still, it's during his final days he at last tells the truth. Now, I know the saying the book was better is often a phrase that gets thrown around quite a bit. Movies and TV series, they simply don't have the ability to equal the sheer number of ideas that you can place inside a book. A novel lets you hear characters' thoughts, and books aren't truly limited by runtime. There's also no real budget involved. Your imagination is what does all the heavy lifting. A lot of the time, you'll picture things in a specific way, and it'll be far more vivid than anything someone can actually pull off in reality. Now, I know the saying the book was better is often a phrase that gets thrown around quite a bit. Honestly, this was always something I feared might happen with the Black Spot. In the book, the bar is attacked by the Legion of White Decency, who are all dressed in KKK robes. So, when I saw in the trailers that the gang was turning up wearing cheap plastic Halloween masks, I kind of thought, they might be cutting corners. That said, I think the scene we end up getting in episode 7 goes way beyond anything written in the text. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down this incredible moment and explaining why it's so horrifying and emotionally devastating. If you're new here, I'm Mr. Frame, and this is the Heavy Spoiler Show. And here we talk about movies and TV shows every single week. If that sounds like your thing, please hit subscribe, and yeah, let's dive into the video. Take my hand, I know a way out. Okay, so although the story mainly centers on the Losers Club in the fictional town of Derry, we also get interludes that help split things up. Within the novel's woven web of fear, there's one scene that really stands out for its raw mix of historical horror and supernatural dread. That, of course, is the fire at the Black Spot. Now, for me, this incident perfectly shows why the story rises above your standard monster narrative. The terror of the Black Spot doesn't just come from jump scares, but from its powerful blend of racial hatred, a town turning on itself, paranoia, fear, destruction, and death. Ultimately, it's a scene about the very worst of humanity, with Pennywise merely present. To truly understand the horror of the Black Spot, we first need to look at Derry's cursed past. In the novel, the Black Spot is a makeshift nightclub set up by black soldiers stationed near the Derry Army base. During a time of strict military segregation in the United States, black servicemen weren't allowed to socialize with white soldiers. Because of this, they were given the Black Spot, a kind of sanctuary where they could be themselves and simply enjoy life. In the film, it becomes a lively bar filled with music and dancing. This mirrors what we see in episode 6, where it feels like a genuinely great place to hang out. However, to the white residents of the town, the Black Spot became a symbol of rebellion. In the novel, King pulls from real historical tensions to deepen the horror. Lynchings, assaults, and arson attacks were common at the time, and society was steeped in constant violence, which fits perfectly with everything we see throughout this episode. The show then pushes things even further, using the Black Spot as a hiding place for Hank. After being suspected of killing the children at the Capitol Cinema, the town shifts toward vigilante justice. This is history repeating itself, as it also happened in previous cycles. Back then, the Bradley gang arrived in town and were eventually shot dead by the citizens. Violence and rage grew, and people decided to take matters into their own hands. That's exactly what's happening here, as the town launches a hunt for Hank. The tragic irony is that they end up killing far more people than Hank was ever accused of. In the middle of the night, they arrive wearing masks, each shaped like a different monster. This is crucial, because some of these creatures are forms that it takes in the book. The text explores the idea that evil might be a single force, wearing different faces depending on who sees it. That same evil exists here, where it doesn't matter who's behind the mask, but rather the darkness driving them. The opening standoff is unbearably tense, with the attackers holding the patrons at gunpoint. Although they claim they're there for Hank, there's obvious hatred toward the people inside. One man lets Norma Price go because of a personal connection, but the rest aren't even viewed as human. These are cowards hiding behind masks, and what they do next fully defines who they are. They barricade the doors and then set the building on fire before randomly shooting anyone inside. This is a scene I never thought could truly be captured on screen. The novel is soaked in vivid descriptions that make you feel the heat of the fire as you read. However, I genuinely think Muschietti and the creative team elevated even further. By presenting the sequence as a continuous owner, we're forced to follow the destruction without cuts. It makes us feel trapped alongside the characters, and it's a brilliant choice that heightens the chaos. The fire steadily grows as we watch it worsen in real time. People are shot as we move through the building with the characters, and it's utterly terrifying. What makes it worse is knowing that most of them have almost no chance of survival. From the very start, we're shown the exits are locked, and anyone who escapes is immediately gunned down. A subtle detail that really strengthens this moment is our knowledge of how positive the black spot was. This was a safe haven that's now been completely twisted into something deadly. At this point, it becomes the most dangerous place in all of Derry. As if that wasn't enough, two major events occur that make everything feel even more hopeless. The first is Dick's desertion, as he desperately runs to save himself. In the book, it's explained that Dick led people out using his psychic powers. That's shown clearly here as he rushes to move a fridge out of the way to burrow through the floors. Dick, quite literally, is being a dick, abandoning everyone else just to escape alive. However, he hears Ronnie crying out for her father, and that moment is what makes him pause and really look again. It's through this that he finally sees the war chief, and it's this realization that sparks a genuine change of heart. Here's a character who once stood up to Pennywise and essentially held the creature at bay to save others. She willingly gave up her own life so that others could live. That realization shakes Dick out of his apathy. It becomes something that's absolutely instrumental in saving Danny, and he'll travel miles and miles and miles and miles away from the events of The Shining just to make his way back to the Overlook. So yes, there is something hopeful in that, but watching him suddenly rush out was still one of those moments where you think, oh god damn. What definitely isn't hopeful, though, is the arrival of Pennywise. Striding calmly through the fire and extending his hand, he makes an unforgettable entrance. Ending up with that face-on-face moment only amplifies the horror already consuming the black spot. Not only do we have the flames raging outside, but now everyone is trapped inside the fire along with this monster. In the book, the creature appears as a massive bird that swoops down and snatches survivors from outside. However, I think using Pennywise here is a far stronger creative decision. We're actually working on a breakdown of It, Chapter 2, and one of my biggest complaints there is that Pennywise isn't used nearly enough. I get that the creature is formless and that it makes sense for it to manifest as different things, but let's be honest, mate. We all want to see Pennywise. I was even a little worried the series might fall into the same trap, especially since the creature doesn't really show up properly until around episode 5. But instead, they've turned the scariness dial all the way up and are fully committing now. I'm genuinely glad they chose to go with the clown here. In this scene, he delivers pure madness. Watching him stand there, mocking Dick while cackling uncontrollably, is far more effective than having some giant bird swoop in and grab people. Creatively, what they do at this point is absolutely genius. This is where we cut to the outside, perfectly juxtaposing the chaos and terror happening within. We see Bowers standing there, smugly, calmly observing his handiwork. There's no panic, no urgency, just a sense of pride spread across his face, which highlights the far more disturbing horrors that exist within humans and within Derry itself. We hear the screams from inside, and the true terror is that he simply stands there and watches. Throughout our videos, we've often discussed how it works as a metaphor for abuse, and how reports of it are frequently ignored by those in authority. Over the past few years, we've seen countless real-world examples where many people come forward with stories of abuse by a single individual, only for it to have been ignored for years. One source of evil causes immense pain, yet no one pays attention until it's too late. Bowers is the chief of police, former chief of police, and the fact that he's capable of this shows exactly why the town is the way it is. Evil wins here because it's allowed to. Those in power actively participate in it and become just as destructive as Pennywise himself. That said, I do think the story shows that this event breaks through the town's apathy. From the book, we know that in the aftermath of the attack, Derry finally turns a corner. People come together to help survivors. Hospital fees are waived or covered by donors, and the town collectively tries to make things right. That unity becomes the turning point. We even see a glimpse of this in Phil's dad, who looks utterly devastated by what he's done. He's been manipulated by others and carried out evil in their name. The town's indifference toward crimes like this enables the entity to thrive, making human flaws complicit in the larger cosmic evil. Sadly, it's at this point that we're hit with one of the most devastating moments I've seen in a very, very long time. Cutting back inside, we see Dick leading people out before going back for Richie and Marge. The roof collapses, trapping the pair inside. Richie directs Marge to a fridge, telling her they can hide there together. But it's painfully clear that there's only room for one. Marge realizes this as she climbs in, and Richie stands there, taking one last look at her before closing the lid. It absolutely rips your heart out. In our videos, we've often said that the strongest action scenes are driven by emotion rather than pure spectacle. Take the opening of that mission. Impossible movie with the plane, an incredible stunt, absolutely brilliant. But I've always felt something was missing because it lacked emotional weight. No Time to Die gets a lot of criticism, but I think its opening works far better because the characters are driven by emotion. Bond is wrestling with paranoia, trust, and betrayal, especially the lingering pain from Vesper, now echoed through Madeline. The action is there, but it's motivated. Even within the Mission Impossible franchise, for all its incredible set pieces, the most effective scenes are emotional ones, like in Mission Impossible 3, when Philip Seymour Hoffman has Ethan's wife at gunpoint. It's simple, restrained, and unbearably tense. Applying that idea here, this moment is essentially just a kid lying on top of a fridge. But because of the emotional stakes, it completely destroys you. Rich is fighting with everything he has so that Morg can simply live. That's what makes his sacrifice so powerful. As viewers, we desperately want these characters to survive together, and that desire makes the tragedy even more painful. It's easy to put ourselves in Richie's position. He talks about the first time he saw her, replaying all the things he wished he'd said to sound cool. We've all been there. Watching this, I couldn't help remembering moments from my own childhood. I won't say which ones in case my wife watches this. But we've all fumbled moments like that and spent months thinking of the perfect line afterward. Richie finally gets to say that line. And what makes it even sadder is that Marge loves it. It would have worked. In another timeline, they would have spent their lives together. The next day, Marge is rescued, and Richie is still there, frozen in place, holding his watch. His eyes are wide open, and even in death, he made sure nothing could reach her. It's devastating. Because of this, she carried out horrendous acts, but in the end, it was all for a lie. I think it's really important to remember that we can all be manipulated into doing something bad by people who appear with a friendly face. In doing this, though, she also carries out the same evil as those who set the fire. And yeah, this betrayal, Rich's death, the Warner itself, The tension, everything is executed perfectly. It's one of the best scenes I've seen in a show in a very long time. Much like how the town overlooks Pennywise's killings, we then hear reports the next day that whitewash the event, even eulogizing Stanley while painting the black spot as problematic. There's very much the sentiment that they got what they deserved, even when the word illegal is used. This is something we often see in society, people blaming the victims instead of those who ruined their lives. This adds to the scene's timeless feeling because it's about us as much as it is about it. Pennywise doesn't need to orchestrate the fire. It simply rides the wave of hate. It observes and waits for humanity's worst impulses to rise to the surface. Sadly, throughout history, children are often the victims of adults' evil actions. And that's exactly what we see here, as so many innocent lives are lost. In a franchise filled with iconic frights, the black spot endures as particularly chilling because it refuses catharsis. There's no heroic defeat of the monster or triumphant takedown of the villains. The fire happens, lives are lost, and Pennywise walks away unscathed, as do most of those involved. This scene forces us to ask who the real evil is. Is it Pennywise for capitalizing on the fire, or the people who caused it? I think you know the answer. What I love most is that it shows how the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create ourselves. Ultimately, this scene is an incredible chapter in the story, and it's one that will haunt me for a long time. If you enjoyed this analysis and want to see more deep dives like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching until the end. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.